Morning. Really glad that you all showed up again this morning. Thank you for being helpful partners to us and getting the word out to the public. Really appreciate that. I want to start this morning with some good news. After spending much of last night in the water treatment plant again, I was there till close to midnight last night. I can report that we actually have pumps that are up and running, filters that have come online. We have 2 of the 8 pumps in the facility that are actively running, actively pumping out into distribution. 5 total pumps that are online and ready to kick in at some point today. We actually brought in 2 additional bypass pumps overnight to route water around and directly into our northern basin, which will feed the reservoir. And 13 of the plant's 20 or so filters are in operation. So right now, we have over 45 million gallons a day, MGD, of water that is pumping out into distribution, and that is actively filling up our reservoir. It started the night when I left around 11:30, we were about 9 MGD. So we've made some really significant progress over the last 8 hours or so. We're starting to see that reservoir level fill up. It's really encouraging. Right now, the reservoir level is at 7 feet. For some context, when our reservoir typically runs at about 18 feet, we feel much better when the reservoir fills to a little bit over 10 feet. So what does this mean for people and what they're experiencing? People are probably seeing a return not to full pressure, but partial pressure. We know that there are parts of the city already, as water has been pumping into distribution since last night, that have had a return of some water function. We really need to continue to press the message of conservation, because I know that as people have woken up this morning, have turned on showers, have turned on faucets, there's probably a sense of urgency to get out there and to take a shower, to wash your dishes, to do the things that we all want to do. And I would just ask that we continue to make wise and thoughtful decisions until our reservoir gets to where it needs to be. Again, right now that reservoir height is at 7 feet. If there's tons of utilization, that's going to drop down. We really want people to conserve wisely. With 45 million gallons a day, we should see some steady increases during the day and hopefully get over about the 10-foot mark, which would be a good marker for us. So a couple thoughts on what you will see as pressure returns. The water is not going to look like you're used to it looking, right? When there hasn't been water in the system, you'll see sediment that's picked up by the water. That water will look rusty, it may look dirty, it will look turbid, it'll look cloudy. And so that's all just natural. Know to expect that. It doesn't mean the water is bad. It means that it's picking up stuff in the system that needs to get flushed out, and that will clear up over time. Know also, we've talked about the consumption side of this. There is also, or the utilization side of this, there's also a consumption side of this, right? We are still under a boiled water advisory. So please do not consume that water without boiling it first. This likely, as I've talked about yesterday, is going to be an extended process. Once we get up to full pressures, we'll do our first round of testing. Our protocol in the state with VDH is 2 tests separated by 16 hours that are negative, right? And so at some point, likely this afternoon, will be that first set of tests. So at this point, I think it is unlikely that we will lift the boiled water advisory before Friday. We will absolutely keep you posted. It'll go out to the media when we can lift that. But that's what I anticipate at this point. So evolving situation, we're continuing to work around the clock, but know that both conservation is vital and boiled water advisory, consuming water safely, is vital. Okay, a couple of other thoughts that I want to share with everybody. I talked yesterday about some of the preparations for water coming back in the system. You may still see fire hydrants that are flushing water. Remember, we've got to flush water through the system to get air out of the system and to try to get some sediment out of the system. This is an important preemptive step to minimize the risk of water main breaks and other things that could be an issue for us as water re-enters the system. As soon as we get out of the emergency response phase, as soon as we get out of our first priority to restore water to people in the region, we will absolutely do a thorough after-action report to make sure that we fully diagnosed where the system failed, why it happened, what investments we need to make, and what we can do to prevent that from happening in the future. You know, undoubtedly, this whole episode has highlighted ongoing concerns about the fact that we live in an old city with an aging infrastructure, and we need to keep that infrastructure front of mind and continue to make investments of that to make sure that we can provide the basic services that we need to. Just as a point of reference, the oldest plant in our city, Plant 1 is what we call it, had its 100th anniversary this year, or in 2024, right? And so, you know, we are dealing with very old infrastructure, and so we've got to honestly evaluate that and do some work to make sure that we're up to speed in the days and weeks to come once we get over this emergency. I want to just say a few words of thanks. Again, our regional partners have been spectacular. Last night, 11 p.m., I was at the water treatment plant, and around the table was our response team, along with the Waterworks director from Hanover, deputy county manager from Henrico. I mean, this really is a hands-on team effort, and the region has been phenomenal about coming alongside us. I want to thank our partners in state government as well. State government, I've been regularly on the phone with the governor and his chief of staff and the VDEM team. Bridget, just a couple of points of what is coming later today and what has come over the last few hours. We have 11 tanker trucks that are currently rotating with 13 additional tanker trucks on the way. Some of these tankers are going to hospitals and have been supporting hospital operations so they can continue to provide care. Overnight, the state deployed the National Guard, who is coming here with 2,000-gallon trailers to help provide water to isolated points, and then about 600,000 bottles of water that are being deployed. We've had tremendous generosity from the private sector. Walmart, Niagara, Publix, and Amazon. Walmart themselves have sent 12 tractor trailers with 6 arriving last night and 6 more coming this afternoon. And then Virginia Department of Corrections has supplied 5,900 units of water as well. VDEM continues to bring in pallets throughout the day, and our central incident management team is helping distribute those pallets to the places that they need to go. Meanwhile, our city will continue to stand up its water bottle distribution operations. I'm going to have my colleague Tracy DeShazer, our Deputy City Chief Administrative Officer, share some details on water distribution. Tracy?
Good morning, everyone. Again, Tracy DeShazer, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Human Services. So again, wanted to provide an update on our water distribution efforts. Human Services has been leading and coordinating water distribution over the past several days to ensure we are adequately supporting our Richmond residents. Water distribution is moving along 2 different tracks, and so I want to ensure I emphasize what those 2 different tracks are. So number 1, you all have been wonderful partners in helping us get the word out about our citywide distribution. Yesterday, we distributed to 10 different sites across the city. Today, we have added an additional site. To reiterate, those sites are Broad Rock Library, West End Library, Hickory Hill Community Center, Belmead Community Center, Midtown Green, Pine Camp Community Center, Randolph Community Center, Westover Hills Community Center, East End District Initiative, or EDI, and Southside Plaza. Those are the initial 10. The 11th site is the Annie Giles Community Resource and Training Center. And working closely with our elected leaders, community organizations, and members of the general community, we recognize that we did need to then add that additional site. Distribution will take place today beginning at 10:30 a.m. We continue to distribute 3 liters of water per person per household. Again, I want to emphasize 3 liters of water per person per household. The reason for that number is obviously we are tracking our supply. We are trying to move forward in an equitable approach and then also ensure our residents have what they need. So that's track 1. Track 2, we are then separately working to support specialty populations. Those populations include our public housing residents, our child care centers, individuals experiencing homelessness, older adults, our immigrants and refugees and other individuals experiencing barriers that may prevent them from getting to any of the other distribution sites. We encourage residents who do have any barrier that they are facing, whether it be transportation or mobility, to contact 311 for additional assistance. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, and just in closing, again, I want to thank the residents of this region for their patience. I know this has been an extremely trying time to not have drinking water, to not be able to shower, to not be able to wash dishes, and that, you know, how many hours ever we are into this, the frustration is rising. So I hope people can take some solace in the fact that we've made really good progress overnight, that things are looking more positive for today. But again, take-home messages, please use water wisely. Remember that we need the reservoir height to build up so that we have full pressure going into the system so we can feed the needs of the region. So we are very much asking for us to just look out for each other, look out for our neighbors, make sure water can get to where it needs to get to in hospitals and other critical infrastructure. And so conservation continues and boiled water advisory continues. Questions?
Folks, before we get going, let's do this in an orderly fashion so you don't have to shout over each other. Let's start on this end where Brad is and move around the way. So just start on the end of the line and just go in order.
Sorry, Sarah, do you want to start and we'll just come on?
Can you tell us more about the bypass pumps? Are those things that the city has temporarily, or the city has bought? Where do they come from?
Yep, the question is, tell us more about the bypass pumps. Are those things that are just temporary, and where did they come from? The bypass pumps are not things that we owned. We actually reached out to contractors yesterday who came in. They ultimately got delivered around 2 a.m., and then we got them up and running sometime this morning. The bypass pumps are not pumping directly into distribution. They're basically going from our, where the water is filtered to our northern basin, and then that then goes through our pumps to feed the reservoir. Brad.
Trying to stay positive here. Looks like a lot of people were upbeat, at least not fighting at water sites yesterday. Could you speak some to how the public has responded to water distro? Yeah.
Tracy, do you want to take that? I'm going to put these mics here so you can.
Please don't put the book on my.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Happy to. So thank you for the question. And again, I just want to reiterate the question, just how residents are responding to the water distribution. It has been very positive. I will say that yesterday we did have a few logistical challenges that we were navigating. First, we are dealing with a weather incident, right? And so we have to be safe when we are actually moving our teams out to distribute that water. That means that we have to be mindful of icy conditions, right? Any sort of sleet, any other wet conditions or dangerous conditions on the road. So we did have to slow down our operation yesterday to ensure we were able to get the supply there safely, without incident, and without losing any of that supply. Once we were able to get there, again, residents are responding very positively. Today, our operations, we have already set up water at various sites, and we just want to be mindful that, again, we are supporting 11 sites across the city for citywide distribution, and we are also simultaneously supporting specialty populations. And so we appreciate residents for their patience, their kindness as we've engaged them, and we also appreciate the American Red Cross for supporting us with the distribution, as well as several city departments.
Maybe talk about infrastructure investment. Has your team, your office, reached out to the Virginia General Assembly? What's that communication been like? Maybe ask for more funding, whatever the partnership might look like moving forward.
Yeah, the question is as it relates to infrastructure investment, have we reached out to the General Assembly to talk about bringing in additional funds to do that? Not at this point. I mean, obviously, we're in regular conversation with our state partners. As I said, I've had conversations directly with the governor yesterday and today. I've been on the phone around the clock with his chief of staff. And so we have really been focused on recovery, getting water back out there. I think the next phase is to really do the deeper assessment of where we need larger, broader scale investment in the aging infrastructure. We've had a lot of those conversations over the last year, couple of years at this point, around stormwater overflow as an example. And I think that's just one example of aging infrastructure. I think our water treatment plant is another one. So more to come on that. Yeah.
What exactly happened yesterday, and how soon did it happen after the announcement came that production had been restored, and why were national experts bringing to
The question is, what exactly happened yesterday, when, timeline on when water was restored, and why were national experts brought in?
Well, how soon after the announcement came that production had been restored did that happen?
Yeah. I might need some help, some reminder on when we actually, I know we had, at the time that I got back to the water treatment plant last night, we had about 9 MGD going into distribution. Remember, the night before, there were some stops and starts, right? Like we got water moving, and then a pump would go out. So I don't know if you.
Equipment, one of the.
Yeah, come on, April. April Bingham, Director of Public Utilities.
Good morning, everyone. I think the question is based around another piece of equipment failed us on yesterday. And so I think your question was, when did national agencies come in? What? So I'm not sure if I'm responding directly to your question, but I will say this. The Virginia Department of Health Office of Drinking Water has been on site with us. They are one of our partners. And so we did not call them in. They have been there on site with us, dialoguing with us, communicating with us, and learning with us through this process. So we did not call them in. The equipment that failed yesterday caused us to turn off pumps and pipes and filters until we could stabilize the system and restart it again, if that answers your question.
Can you speak to specifics on that equipment that failed, and that electrical equipment that failed, and why that was necessary?
So that piece of equipment, to my understanding, manages all of our filters. So filters and pumps are needed to move water through the distribution system, and it is also needed to be able to fill up both of our basins at the plant so that we can have operations as well as distribution for the communities that we serve. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's right.
You mentioned that we do not own those, the bypass equipment. What is, the plan? When do we have to give those back? Are we planning to purchase our own? And what is the plan in place for that?
Yeah, the question is, I mentioned bypass pumps. We don't own them. We're contracting them currently. Do we plan to purchase them in the future? I think that'll absolutely be a part of our after-action analysis. I think job number one is to get our pumps up and running and to stabilize, and then to decide. I don't have a sense of what the cost to purchase those is, and if there are contractors in the area that have them, is that as good a solution as us having them? I think we will see a number of recommendations come out in our after-action reporting, but I do think the basic point of ensuring that we have redundancy is really important, and I think our plans did have redundancy. We just had a situation where, because all of our machinery were in a couple of different spaces that flooded, the water damage impacted the entire operation, along with, remember yesterday I was talking about the IT system, that actually supports the entire operation. Ultimately, the outage that kind of shocked that system kept us from being unable to connect to servers and get that piece going until about midnight the night before. So that was some of the early delay. Yeah. Sabrina.
So I have kind of a two-part question. Does your own house have water? And as we head into another storm this weekend, potentially, what's the risk of having another power outage, and would the facility survive that?
Questions, does my own house have water? And then as we head into weather, another potential weather incident, how are we preparing for that?
Yeah, basically, like if a power outage happens again,
Yeah.
would the facility
Yeah.
survive? What's the risk?
Yeah, sadly, I live up on a hill in Church Hill, and so we have not seen restoration of water there yet. Hoping again, like everybody else, that'll happen sometime this afternoon. And we are obviously monitoring weather. We actually just came from an 8 o'clock briefing with our meteorologists, and so we're planning for that weather response. I think, given everything we have learned over the last 36, 48 hours about our equipment, I think we certainly are planning, like, how do we monitor against future flooding risk or power outage events, and we'll be looking in the next day or so before that weather arrives for battery backup opportunities to kind of prepare for another outage. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Can you clarify the pumps, aside from the bypass pumps, you said 2 of 8 pumps are actively running, 5 pumps are online, ready to kick in, but this morning in the social media post, the most recent one, you guys said that 5 pumps are operational, which I think would lead people to believe that those are actually actively working.
Yeah,
So can you
yeah.
explain, like, when the ones that are online are going to be working and why that discrepancy exists?
Sure, yeah, just question is, describe a little bit more about the actual pump situation. Why are we reporting that we have 5 that are working but only actively using 2 pumps? So 2 plants, plant 1, plant 2, each has 4 pumps. We call them the north and south pumps. We have 5 that have been serviced and been working throughout the night. So we have 5 as of this morning that are in working condition, ready to start pumping. We require a certain amount of water and pressure to be in the reservoir and in our holding basin to actually be able to effectively use all of those pumps. And so that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting to hit, and I don't know the exact threshold, but we're waiting to hit a certain threshold of pressure in our system. Then we can to keep operations going. So then we can kick on the other pumps. So right now there are actively 2 pumps that are pushing water out. As when we reach that pressure threshold, we'll turn on the other pumps, and that'll put more water into the system and then get at the distribution and the pressure that people are used to. Yeah. Yep.
So
Kyle.
the state has already said that there clearly seems to be some regulatory noncompliance on the city's part as it relates to prevention. So I'm wondering, did DPU do everything it possibly could to prevent this crisis ahead of the storm? For example, did they test the backup systems before the storm? Did they ensure the reservoir was at 100% capacity? Was the plant being powered at 100% power capacity by both power sources? And essentially, was there a proper preparedness plan in place for this storm?
Yeah, the question is, how prepared were we? Did we test things leading into the storm to be able to have some resiliency? I'm day 6 on the job. I'm not sure that I can answer that in any detail. I do know that our operation, on an annual basis is going through preparedness exercises. So that will also be a part of our after-action report, looking at when was the last time that we, tested on a potential outage? What is our regular rhythm for testing battery backups? In this case, the battery backup, at least on the IT system, did kick in. It just didn't last long enough, right? We had a power outage that was a little bit over 2 hours. The battery backup lasted about an hour. And so the IT system went down. So that's one example of, I think, we now know that we've got to plan for a longer window for that, operating brain to be up and running. Great question. More to come as we get into after-action planning. Thanks,
Now,
Tyler.
there was a federal audit dating back to 2022, and maybe Director Bingham knows more about this, but it cited the city for corroding pumps and faults with the valves and with the filters. Did faulty equipment contribute to this crisis at all?
I mean, certainly aging equipment did, right? And I think aging equipment sitting in water was really the clear cause of this. April, anything you'd add about the federal audit? I don't know much about
I
it.
can, again, April Bingham, DPU Director. I think to answer your question, the 2022 audit, we are working with the EPA to respond to that audit. We've already provided our response to them. I think this incident here was simply caused by an outage to the plant. Certainly, as Mayor has said, the plant is 100 years old. We have aging infrastructure, and we have to continue to focus on investments in this infrastructure. I'm not going to combine the two because I can't right today say that they were connected. The response and research that we've done to provide our response back to EPA has been very thorough and inclusive. We're waiting to hear their feedback on what we've submitted as a review process. Don't know when that will be. I think right now everyone is returning from holidays and getting agendas back up and running, but we are very much in touch with them to see what their response would be from what we've already provided. But 2 totally separate incidents. Thank you.
Keep going down the
Ready?
line. We'll get back to you, but keep going down the line.
Good morning. Tracy, you mentioned 311 and how it can help individuals who might not be able to access the distribution sites. Can you please detail that process? What can someone expect if they call up and like, hey, I need water to be delivered to me? I know sometimes we've been calling 311 and it hasn't been working or it's silent on the other line.
So thank you so much for the question. So 311 is absolutely working. The process is incredibly simple. Residents call 311. They simply relay what their issue is. What will be most helpful is as residents do contact 311, if they let us know how many individuals are also in their household. But it's working incredibly well. Our teams are out right now distributing water to those residents that do have mobility challenges, that don't have access to transportation, but it's working very well. Thank you for the question.
Anyone else on this one?
Well, you mentioned battery backups a few minutes
Yeah, question is, what does battery backup preparation look like between now and Friday in case we have another outage? I think, there's the primary battery backup that supports the IT system, and then there's a separate set of batteries that support, in the event of an outage, the valves that open and close, right? And so as we get up to pressure, as we have a little bit of a window between probably this afternoon and when this impending weather is coming, we'll look at making sure that those batteries are charged, try to see what we can do to diagnose why that battery, the second battery backup that did not open the valves that ultimately led to the flooding, see how we can prevent that. I don't have much more detail at this point just because we have not gotten into it. Do you have some, April? Great.
I do. Just stepping back in very quickly, I think what I'll leave you with is when we think about the storm that's coming, it really is an add-on to what Mayor Avula was saying. It's people, pipes, and pumps. That's what we need to operate the plant. Our staff, we are rotating them in and out, 12-hour shifts, pipes, pumps. We will continue to rely on our county regional partners. Henrico, I'll call them out. Henrico, Chesterfield, and Hanover, they've been tremendous to work with. We will continue to invest in having on-site support from our contractors. We have contractors that help us run the plant from an operational perspective. They will be on site. They've been on site all week. And we will also make sure that those individuals that help us with the systems and software, that they too will be on site as we roll into this weekend for the storm preparation. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, the people I'm talking to, they're a little frustrated with the city's communications. One press conference Monday, one yesterday, and then a series of press releases that didn't always pan out. And a Henrico official has been quoted saying it would have been nice to hear from the city a little earlier. Can you talk about, I know you guys are working around the clock. Can you talk about your comms plan and whether that will be relevant going forward?
Yeah, thank you, Samuel. The question is, what are we doing about more frequent communication? Obviously, there's two sides to this response, right? It's the actual operational side of getting water back up and running, and then there's the ultra important communication side of making sure the public knows and can anticipate something. I think at every step there is a balance between making sure that we have good and accurate information that gets out. And as I've mentioned over the last couple of press conferences, the need for that to be vetted initially, especially regionally by our regional partners. I think clearly we could have been doing more, or as part of our after action will be probably a more frequent cadence of doing press conferences, getting press out. We have been ramping up our outputs on the website, on our social media. Last night we started getting more technical in terms of, hey, here's how many filters, here's how many pumps. As we move forward, I think really the benchmarks that we're looking at and that we'll start communicating out, height of the reservoir, gallons of water out in distribution. And again, I think by the afternoon, we should see some returns, at least a partial pressure throughout the system.
All right, back in the middle, this is the last question.
Businesses have been closed for days, parents haven't been able to work, and just a domino effect of other things. What is your message to people who have spent their money on bottled water, who aren't having any money income coming in? What do you have to say to residents in the city?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. I mean, I think this is the reality. We are all in crisis mode responding to this. I understand that for residents, we have very vulnerable populations who need access to water. We also have restaurants that have been closed. We have businesses that can't operate. We've had to shut down events. And so my message is we are doing everything that we can. We have great partnership, again, from the region and the state. And so while I think we are coming to the end of this, we are still going to be in recovery phase while we do not have drinking water available. And so I really need folks to band together and to think about how we are supporting each other, conserve, boil water. We're going to continue to do everything we can to do water distribution. As I mentioned earlier, the state has been a phenomenal partner in bringing more drinkable water in, and we'll feed that into the distribution plan. But just have grace for each other, right? This is a really challenging time. People are losing patience, haven't showered since Monday morning, et cetera, right? And so let's just be kind to one another and think about how we can preserve water for the most vulnerable residents of our community. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, you want to talk to Carla? Y'all are welcome to hang here with this room all the way down at the hall if you need to just like chill and do some post-production or whatever. All the way down here. Please don't come downstairs. So you can holler